today, which is fantastic. What is it? White before Labor Day or something? I don't know. It doesn't matter. Now, Dawn, now that we've got Dan here, I want to talk about this situation of the FBI to interview Hillary Clinton. It seems that all indications are pointing to this Clinton email saga moving into its final phases.
No, not the final stages. Jim, I don't want to interrupt you. It's
What's
not
up?
the final stages. That's a step. And that gives at least a month away. Again, they're going to string it out until just before Memorial Day. And then they're going to say, oops, she's going to plead a little misdemeanor, and we're all hopefully she's going to hope that it all goes away.
Dan, your thoughts on that?
Well, I went back and looked at Petraeus's count, and I read extensively, and what I found is that the FBI was very upset that after all the work they did, that he was able to plead to a misdemeanor because they can then bargain to time, community service or whatever. Had he been convicted or gone to trial for a felony, that would have had a significant impact. I know that Don and I spoke yesterday, and his sources are telling him in Washington that they're going to do a plea bargain that's going to be announced on the Friday before Memorial Day weekend, and she's going to plead to a misdemeanor, and she'll have to pay a fine, but no trial. And so I think there's going to be an awful lot of people in Congress and in America who would be very disappointed at a plea bargain similar to what Petraeus got for his offense. I think it's going to be an outrage. And I wouldn't be surprised if the FBI isn't pretty angry too.
Oh, but then she's going to say, but what difference does it make?
She's already used that line.
Yeah.
Oh, she can use it again. Because what they're going to say is, look at Petraeus, look at him, look at me, woe is me, let's all go on. It's Memorial Day, let's go to the beach. That's what's going to be said.
I'm amazed. I just think it's I was trying to figure out whether or not the president can pardon somebody if they haven't been convicted of a crime. The only pardon that I know of that didn't include a crime, although he was in essence indicted, was the pardon that Gerald Ford gave to Richard Nixon. So there was not an impeachment trial, but I don't know whether under the laws, the event that took place where they negotiated his resignation and then the pardon was all part of the deal. I don't know whether it was symbolic or whether it was legal or not. I'm not a legal scholar to know the difference, but I think that the scope of evidence for what Hillary is going to be charged with a misdemeanor versus the scope of evidence that Petraeus was indicted for a misdemeanor seems to me to be a difference in not in night and day, but two worlds apart.
They are, but they will in the world of Washington equate, and that's how she'll get around it. That's the real feeling within the Clinton camp that she will beat this one too.
So, as I recall in the Petraeus case when I read it, there was an admission of guilt to the misdemeanor charge.
An admission that he did not fully protect. He didn't say that he gave the material. He did not fully protect.
Okay.
Okay, that's the difference.
But how is it different, Don? I mean, if she didn't fully protect by having an independent non-government server, Not only did she not protect it, but the issue is, did she use it? Did she use it inappropriately, or did she endanger anybody's lives? And did she endanger the national security of the country? The answer has to be yes to all of those.
Yes, but that's because you're asking it. But in the court and under the legal system, all she has to do is say, "I did not fully protect it," and all the rest becomes you and me talking on the radio along with thousands of other people. It's unfortunate, and she can always point to that.
But does that create a situation where she's still vulnerable? Because if whoever the Republican candidate is, does the Republican candidate have the ability to say to the public, she admitted that she was not capable of protecting our national security? Do you want her protecting our country?
That's too sophist. The only thing that will really impinge on the American public is if she's convicted. Other than that, it's open to interpretation, and she's got a whole phalanx of people who will come out as they've been doing for the last 6 months. You have no idea the number of emails I get across about her acolytes saying about this. And they'll go on TV and they'll smother it. They'll smother it on the Sunday before the day before Memorial Day on all the news programs. And by the time we all get back to work the following week, it'll be old news, and they can twist it any way they want.
Wow.
Wow is indeed.
It makes me.
I could be wrong, but that's what I've heard.
Okay, I understand that. I'm not going to hold you to it. But you still think she's not going to be the nominee?
I still do. I really and truly. How can you sit there if she loses New York State, or even if Bernie comes close? You're looking at a former senator from New York State against an 80-odd-year-old, how old he is.
Somebody older than you.
Well, I'm sorry?
Somebody older than you.
Oh, he's definitely older than me. I just turned 73.
Oh, okay.
So, but the answer is, how can you possibly sit there and say this is a viable candidate when she can't kill him in her own state? And to get back to Jim's question, I think he's going to do very well in Wisconsin. Today, he may win the state, as the polls say, but all he has to do is come close. And, you brought up an issue. You wanted to talk about how they're controlling the funding, the Clintons through and you can explain it better than I can. But the point being, her real hold, if you take out the super delegates and the delegates who are beholden to her for various reasons, she's not doing a very good job of sewing up the Democratic nomination.
Right, I agree. Jim, do we need to take a break before I get into this? Because it may take a couple of minutes.
Okay, well, let's do this. We're gonna put our two guys from Verona on hold. Yes, let's go. Let's talk about this, because I know that I want to give you the floor. You take as much time as you need here.
Okay. You may or may not be aware that the president came out today and said that the Treasury is going to issue new regulations on corporate inversions. To put that simple, Jim, is that a corporation can buy an interest in a smaller company overseas and effectively transfer their earnings to the overseas operation to avoid paying U.S. taxes. There are people that estimate that the corporations, American corporations, multinationals, have in excess of $2 trillion in cash overseas and don't want to bring it back to the United States because the United States has the highest tax rate in the world for corporations, or one of the highest, top 5, I guess it is. Now, this is a very complex transaction in order to move money. It is a perfectly legal transaction, and the president made it seem today as if it was illegal, that corporations were doing bad things. People me to understand those of us that have money in pension accounts or retirement accounts and own common stock. We understand that the board of the trustees for the company have the responsibility to protect our interest as shareholders. Now, I don't want to go into the detail of the complexity of that transaction. I just wanted to say to you that there are provisions in the tax law that allow people to do certain things. Last summer, Hillary Clinton's friends put together a PAC called Hillary's Victory. This is a political action committee which is not supposed to be aligned with the candidate, Mrs. Clinton. Now, there are certain dollar limits that individuals and corporations can give directly to candidates. And there are certain games that you can play that might make it as much as $9,000, meaning you or I, Jim or Don, could give $9,000 directly to Hillary's campaign within a tax year. But PACs are not regulated the same way. So this is what happened last year. The Hillary Victory PAC went out and solicited contributions from big money donors. And they put together a structure that allows the money to go through the Hillary PAC to the Democratic Committee, back to Hillary's campaign, which then her chief financial officer doles the money out to the Democratic parties in the state and individual candidates' campaigns. How significant is it? A family of two, husband and wife, who might have been able to give $18,000 to Hillary's campaign, through the PAC can give $660,000.
Holy smokes.
So what I believe is going on is that the Clinton campaign has figured out, and you're too young for this, Jim, but Don and I are, especially Don, old enough to remember the record payola.
You keep telling me I'm older than you, but not that much.
That's all right. It's more fun to do it that way. Anyway, when we were
it's important for context, Don.
Yes, when we were growing up as kids, listening to rock and roll and buying 45s, we were listening to the radio stations, and the disc jockeys were actually getting paid to play the records. They called it payola.
Oh yes.
Right. Well,
yes.
Now we have a new form of this payola, because if you're in trouble, and there are several state Democratic parties that are in serious financial difficulty, in comes the Clinton package, which then provided money for the state organization and money for particular candidates, not necessarily, Jim, who are running for re-election this year, but to give money to their campaign funds because they might be running for re-election next year or the year after. She is, in effect, using the leverage that they've figured out, the $660,000 for a couple, to begin, these are my words, Jim, buying senators and congressmen and buying state political campaigns. And as a result, she keeps losing to Bernie, but Bernie keeps losing to her. Why? Because the flow of money is so great. And one of the articles I read about this scam, Jim, is that people are given $660,000 and they don't know what state it's going to or what campaign it's going to. It's just that they can have influence within the Democratic Party. So we've got a huge buying of influence, trying to secure votes for the convention in favor of Hillary because of the huge amounts of money that are not being reported. Interestingly enough, Jim, the treasurer of the Hillary campaign has the sole responsibility to decide who ultimately gets the money. The chief financial officer of Hillary's campaign gets the decision to decide who gets what. So my point, the reason why I think this is a story that I'm interested in, nobody else in the world, perhaps, but maybe you two guys, would appreciate this at the moment. But I think it's a story that right now is a backstory that could become, depending upon how Mr. Sanders does going forward. As Jim said in the previous, before we went to the last break, if Bernie Sanders is competitive or wins New York, and there's every possibility that he'll win Wisconsin tonight,
yeah,
that'll be 6 or 7 in a row for him, since she's won anything. And if she can't win or be competitive in her home state, I don't know whether there's enough money in the world to people want to continue to support her.
See, the thing that I think is funny is she's gonna, if Bernie beats her, if Bernie gets the nomination, it would be she got beat by a young guy in Obama, and now she gets beat by an old guy in Bernie Sanders.
An old white guy older than Don.
Much older than Don.
Very much older than Don.
And so you have to ask yourself the question, Jim, what the hell happened in America that would cause this to happen?
The only thing I can think of, and maybe agree with me on this. The thing is that there's a lot of different things, and you guys brought it up there. You know, you guys remember buying 45s and the disc jockeys and payola and all that.
Yes.
And what the hell is this?
I don't know, but go ahead.
No, we're not taking that phone call. But the situation, the Clintons, you know, these millennials don't remember Bill Clinton selling us out to China. They don't remember us being, sold out through NAFTA and all these other things. They don't remember any of this.
No.
They don't remember Clinton giving a surplus of, and getting rid of the debt and giving us a surplus. They don't remember any of that. All they remember is what they've seen in the history books, which is he got oral sex in the White House.
Right.
And Hillary tried to do health care and failed, and Benghazi. Right. That's it. Mm-hmm. And Bernie is running around going, you know something? We need to have a well-educated workforce. We need to fix the roads and the bridges, and college is too damn expensive. And all these kids who are in college are like, I agree with that old guy.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I can think of as to why Hillary is not working
I'll give you a different take on it.
Okay, go.
Hillary is simply the old guard. And whether we like it or not, the old guard is dying. We don't have political leaders. There was a play about Mayor Fiorello LaGuardia many years ago called Fiorello. And in it was a song called Politics and Poker. And it was all about how decisions are made in the back room. Well, there were some pretty good decisions made in the back room. And now it's changed. And what they decided in the 60s, again, young college kids, was they're going to fix it by allowing the American people more control in the primaries. And then it took 50 years, but they have taken control in the primaries and made their voice known. And those politicians in the 60s who fixed it are now in their 70s, or 60s actually, and are running it, and they're getting hoisted on their own petard. Because the American people are saying, we don't like what's going on, and we want change. And the only two people that are giving them different messages are Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders. Hillary Clinton goes through. If you listen to her speech, for one thing, it's tired. She's tired. If you listen to Cruz, he's too shrill. Kissinger is thoughtful, but he doesn't get the publicity necessary. And you have people out there I don't know how Bernie does it, but I couldn't get up and make the speeches he makes at my age, let alone at his age. But he is really motivated, and if you listen to his speeches and you put him and Hillary side by side, who would you vote for? And the American people are making their voice known.
And I think that some night, if it hasn't already happened, Bernie Sanders is sitting in a hotel room somewhere saying, did I blow this? When I let her off the hook at the beginning with the debates and never challenged her, and everything was fine with the emails, I gave her the election. If she wins, I was the one that gave it to her because I didn't press.
You're absolutely right, Dan.
And he's trying to do it now, but it's almost too late. I just think that there's another example, Jim. We had a conversation several weeks ago when I told you that I was concerned that there's something medically going on with Mrs. Clinton. And while I'm not a doctor, I was concerned that some of the symptoms that she was demonstrating might indicate a precursor of dementia. And I pointed out the Ronald Reagan comments at the Nancy Reagan's funeral, the coal miners the following Sunday, nobody died in Benghazi on Monday. Now we have this weekend on Meet the Press where she violated the sacred law, and the abortion people are up in arms against her because in an interview, the sacred law in discussion abortion is never to use the word person or personhood or child when referring to the fetus. And she did, I believe, on Face the Nation or whatever the Sunday morning talk show was on Sunday, she used both. She used the child, an unborn child, and an unlawful person. And the right to the abortion people went crazy. The people who are the professionals that perform the abortions and move on with the other clinics, they were outraged at Mrs. Clinton. So in a series of what they keep calling is gaffes, these are gaffes. If they're gaffes, they're about the major constituency of the Democratic Party. The unions, the coal miners have to be put out of work in Kentucky. And when we have Planned Parenthood, who is the number one abortion organization in the country, supposedly a big supporter of Hillary, angered because she broke the sacred trust. When the gay people were up in arms because she gave Reagan more credit than they felt that he deserved. These are signs, and Don and I were talking about it today. Is this a person who is sick, or is this a person who can't remember?
Dan, let me jump in here and say, if that happened to your mother or your father in everyday life, you'd start to think about it. You'd begin to worry. Do they have dementia? Are they losing it? You know that old joke about forgetting things when you get older. But the real point here is...
What's the joke? Are you going to tell us a joke?
Well, you know, the three ways, you know, you're getting old. First one is you begin to forget things, and I forget the other two.
Okay.
That's usually pretty good for a laugh in my routine. But anyway,
okay.
the
major
point I want to make is that people are not looking at her and saying, as they would look at the mother and father and say, is this the onset of dementia or not? And that to me is another failing of the media, because certainly in my experience with my parents, it was the first symptom when they started to say things and then realized that what they were saying, did not realize what they were saying at the time they were saying it. And she's done it too many times that in the past few months, particularly at the end of the day or when she's first starting out, where people should not be starting to question whether there's something wrong that we're not aware of. And I personally believe there is, and I'm willing to say something.
Well, I think I agree with you. I started talking about this several weeks ago, and I got a lot of several people cautioned me about raising this issue because it's a dynamite charged issue. But I say to people when I talk about it on radio all over the country, I say, look, one of the questions that we have to ask about all of these candidates, do they have the strength and stamina and the intestinal fortitude to handle the pressure of this job? And I say, all you have to do, as many vacations as Barack Obama has taken, go back and look at the pictures of him at the inauguration and look at him today. He's a totally physically different man. If you look at the last 2 weeks, if you looked at Hillary making a speech, 2 weeks ago I was in Walt Disney in Orlando, and I went to the Hall of Presidents where they have the audio animatronics. And I want to tell you, it's a wonderful experience, but I watched Hillary, and the only thing was moving was her head from left to right. There was no other body motion, there was no energy, no enthusiasm, no power, no structure in her tone. I'm very concerned that if she can't handle no competition from Bernie for such a long period of time, and now finds herself in a situation where she's sniping at a Greenpeace. I'm sick and tired of hearing about the environment with Bernie, what she said last weekend. I mean, if you're sick and tired of hearing about the environment, then don't talk about global warming. Don't talk about climate change. So yeah. It just seems to me that there are things that are going on, and every time they happen, it gives me more and more pause and concern that she's not all there.
No. I totally agree with Dan, and if you also recall, a few months ago I mentioned that I thought that health would become an issue in this campaign. And the other point I'd like to see is I'd like to see Bernie Sanders at the end of the day. He seems more invigorated than any of us, including Donald Trump. At the end of the day, he's got a second life. But you know what? One thing we will know with Bernie Sanders, they won't worry about throwing slurs at his wife.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. Tonight, I think Bernie Sanders is gonna get almost 1 out of every 2 votes in the Wisconsin primary, and I think people are going to be surprised. I just got a note from somebody today that that their exit polls are running very strong for Bernie at this point. In fact, he's outpolling according to at exit polls.
What do you think? I know we got just a few minutes, but you have any thoughts, Jim, on what you think the outcome of Wisconsin is going to be tonight?
I hope it's Trump and Bernie. I don't think it's going to be, though. I think Ted Cruz is probably going to win. Donald will probably get second. Kasich will get, of course, third.
Rubio come in fourth.
Rubio come in fourth, and Jeb might get one delegate. You never know.
But let me follow up with a quick question.
Yes.
Is there a number in your mind? My sense is that the benchmark that everybody's been talking about in the media is Cruz up by 10 points. Is there a number that's less than 10 that causes people to have pause about Cruz? If he wins by 4, I know it's still a win, but if the expectation was that he was going to win by 10, is there a number, either one of you can answer the question, is there a number where he also gets in trouble even though he wins?
Oh, I don't know, Don. You're more of a poll watcher and an educated guess on this.
I honestly believe it doesn't matter what his number is. If he wins, the headline will simply be Cruz wins. What we have to look for, and all that means is we have 2 or 3 more new primaries coming up, and we'll be sitting here 2 or 3 weeks from now talking about it. The important thing is, will Trump have a majority of the delegates by the time he reaches Cleveland? The answer is no. I don't believe he will. Will there be a brokered convention? Yes, I think there will be. Will it be Cruz or Trump? I don't believe it will be. You brought up, Dan, their conversation, and then I saw it someplace else. Everybody's looking maybe at a Speaker of the House Ryan type of candidacy. I don't believe Ryan will give up the speakership. I don't believe he'll do it this year. I think he'll do it 8 years from now.
Let me ask you one quick question before we go. I'm following up on what you just said. So you don't think that Trump would have enough votes? My question to you, Don, is what if Trump has the 1,232 or the 1,237 before they walk in the door of Cleveland? Will the Republican leadership deny him the nomination?
No. Will it deny the Republican Party the presidency? Yes. But will he have? I don't believe. Again, I do not believe that Hillary Clinton will be the Democratic nominee. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I still believe we have 2 or 3 more twists in this presidential campaign before it's over.
But if Hillary is not going to be the nominee for the Democratic Party, and it could be Bernie, and he could come in and demand it if she can't compete. But anybody else, they don't have enough time to build a force on the ground, and I don't see the Clintons turning over their campaign machine to whoever that other Democratic nominee are. So doesn't that change the outcome if Trump gets the nomination because he has it before he walks in the door, and Hillary isn't the opponent? Doesn't that change the outcome of the election?
I don't believe so. Because then it's a toss-up. But Donald Trump is not a nice man. One day you're going to realize that, Dan. And the people will in a presidential campaign recognize that. I told you I've been talking to so many people. Anybody that's ever dealt with him has said the same thing.
Yeah, but you're talking about Jersey. That's too much.
No, I'm not talking about Jersey. I'm talking about New York. I'm talking about I knew you to bring it up, and I'll put it right back on you, Florida, and his place down in Florida. I talked to somebody who did $10 million worth of work for Trump, and said he would never do another deal with him.
Okay.
Because it doesn't keep word.
Let me give you a number. Pew Research reported this morning that of a research poll that was taken at the last week of March, so last week. And they asked the question, what are you looking for in a president? And one of the answers to the question was, somebody who can do whatever is necessary to fix the problems in the country. I don't care what he says or what he does, but fixes the problem. 63% of eligible voters, meaning Democrats and Republicans, want somebody who can get in there, who doesn't care about what people think about him, but can go in and fix problems. 63%, including Democrats.
Absolutely. But that doesn't mean that that Donald Trump is the answer to their prayers. If anything, he's the answer to their nightmares.
No. Here's what the Trump campaign said today. Answering the question, how is the president How is President Trump going to pay for the wall? And whether you heard this, Don, but
No, I didn't.
according to the Department of Treasury, illegals and Mexicans in the United States and other foreign nations send on average $25 billion a year to Mexico. What he is proposing is to sequester that money until Mexico pays for the wall. And he can, through the Federal Reserve System. He can stop the wire transfer. Because they don't put it in a check and put it in an envelope, they send it by wire. And so what he's saying is...
They send it by postal money orders. I know in my town alone, Richfield, the next town over, the Mexicans do it.
Okay. I'm just telling you that the Treasury Department said that they're sending $25 billion a year through the wire system. Now, yours is maybe even more than that. I'm just talking about what the Fed said today of how much goes through the wire system. And so if the president can stop that wire, that money from being transferred, and sequesters it until Mexico pays for the wall, he'll release the funds. That's how they get it paid for.
And all that will it's a nice thought. It's a nice sound bite, but it has absolutely no basis of reality as to what will happen or how it happened. Because if you stop that $25 billion and assume that half of it goes to the cartel, that's $12.5 billion that's going to poor Mexican families.
Right.
My gardener, the guy that does our place, sends his money to Mexico, to southern Mexico. All you would do is hurt him and hurt his family, and wouldn't get the wall built. You could get billionaire Slim to build that wall by simply taking his stake in the New York Times, his 24% stake that he owns in the New York Times, and say you can't take it out of the country until you build a wall.
Right.
And he'd have to. You're right. I don't want to argue. I know how you feel about him. I know how Jimmy feels. But I simply look at it, and I think we're substituting one boogeyman for another. Now you got me up and going because I'm tired.
I think we're out of time, right, Jim?
Yes, we are, unfortunately. Don Mazzella, Dan Perkins.
Dan, I do like you. You know that.
That is awesome. Well, check out Two Guys from Verona. The website is twoguysfromverona.com. And, gentlemen, have yourself a wonderful, wonderful week.